On today's installation of Project Dragonfly, I'm going to show you how I make my dragonfly wings. These are awesome looking and they fish really well. So we're going to need some tools for this. We're going to need a clamp, we're going to need something to cut with, a Sharpie, and a file of some sort. I'm using a sanding drum for a Dremel here and a pair of electrician's shears. You can do the same thing with a small saw or just the Dremel sanding disc if you really wanted to go at it. We're also going to need some popsicle sticks. I got these at Dollar Tree, I think. They're like a 1/2 inch wide by maybe 6-7 inches long. So we're going to take our Sharpie and trace some dragonfly wings here. I printed these out, trimmed it out, and then just traced it. But you can freehand it if you like. I chose to do both a top and bottom wing with a slightly different shape. You'll see at the end here that you can actually just use one if you only wanted to make one of these. We're going to make some wing burners for this, and the easiest way to do that is to take 2 of these popsicle sticks and butt them up back to back so that you can use your template that you made here on the one, cut both of them at the same time, and they line up perfectly, which is what we're going to need the clamp for. And before I start doing detail work on these, I like to just chop off all that empty space that we're not using up front. I'm just roughing it in here. I'm not trying to get close to any lines or anything. I want to leave some room to work on with the sander. Now, because these came from Dollar Tree, they're kind of flimsy, so I like to just take another popsicle stick, break it in half, and put it on either side of those as I clamp it together. Make sure that you get the back side lined up so that when you make your cuts along your lines, everything comes out nice and even. It doesn't really matter too much as long as it's not way far off, but I try and keep it even. This is kind of messy, so I did this outside, but it's like 107 here today, and I'm not really set up to shoot video, so what I did was I took the Dremel with the sanding drum, and I just ground off all the black area that I had shaded until I was left with this. So I used this nail file that I gaffled from my wife to sand off all the rough edges on this and get everything lined up nice and straight, make sure that I kind of did some final shaping on the wings, make sure that they have the profile that I was looking for and that the edge where they meet together is nice and even. That way, when I clamp them together, the profile of the wing is actually what this looks like. Now, that thin area there is pretty weak because these are popsicle sticks, but you can clamp this right here once you've got your material in between it and you're good to go. And you just take the lighter and burn it. I usually just hold it by hand, and honestly, that little narrow area there is very necessary because that's your tie-in point. Okay, this is our wing material. This is a sheet of saran wrap folded in half, then placed between 2 sheets of paper and ironed using a clothes iron on a low setting. This stuff works amazingly well and it looks really good. So just cut it down to little strips like here that'll fit inside these. I've attached these wing burners together using some bicycle inner tube that I had laying around, Ranger bands for the win. And so I can just kind of slide this in here and then it will hold it in place well enough that I can just kind of pinch the burner together as I burn the edges. So as you may or may not be able to see here, we've got way too much material sticking out here. And if we were to burn this right now, we would end up with a very thick band of burnt plastic around the edge of our wings. So we're going to trim that to where there's just a little bit left around the outside there. We do want a little bit of that thick burnt plastic buildup because it makes a very nice edge on the wing, just like you would see on an actual dragonfly's wing. So maybe 1/8 of an inch, just a millimeter, 2 at most, just a little tiny bit outside the burner. This looks about right, 1 millimeter or 2 all the way around. And so let's go ahead and burn that guy. And here's our completed wing. And you can see our tie-in point there. Everything looks good, nice and shiny. Got a little bit of extra plastic there. See how it's black? I'm just gonna go ahead and trim that guy off of there. And there it is. That's our completed wing. We'll just go ahead and do that again. I've already trimmed this so that you didn't have to sit through me doing it again. And here we have the rear wings completed. And you just do the same thing for the front wings. It's kind of slow when you first do it, but after you've done a few of these, you can bust out a set of wings in about 10 minutes. And here you can see what it looks like if you use just the narrower front wing as both the front and back wing. Here I've gone and made up another back wing just to show you what this can look like, how realistic it can be if you're careful with how the saran wrap bends and folds when you're ironing it. You can see that this is pretty realistic and it looks to replicate the cells in an actual dragonfly wing pretty well. I know that was a long ride and I appreciate you sticking with me to the end. In the next video, we'll put this all together and see what the finished dragonfly looks like. Until then, tight lines and don't burn the house down.